Welcome back to Psychology of Learning with Dr. Goodin. Chapter 10 on Observational Learning. So, oh yeah. So the question of this chapter, let's watch the cat. The question of this chapter is whether one individual can learn by observing the experience of another. And the answer is yes. There are types of observational learning. Traditionally, observational learning is defined as learning from the experiences of a model. This definition may be a little too simplistic. Observational learning means learning by observing events and their consequences. And by the way, a model does not mean somebody on a catwalk. It means somebody who is doing something that you might do. Social observational learning versus asocial. The social version of observational learning may also be called the active model type. In this case, observing the behavior of another individual in the consequences of the model's behavior has an effect on the observer. If the consequences of the model's behavior strengthen the observer's tendency to behave in a similar way, we say the behavior has been vicariously reinforced. If the consequences of the model's behavior weaken the observer's tendency to behave in a similar way, the behavior is said to have been vicariously punished. Any of you have siblings? Hopefully you learned from them. Maybe you saw your brother say a word he shouldn't have said and get punished. You learned the lesson without having to get the punishment. Or you saw your brother get an A on a test and get praise or even money. How did this affect your behavior? When there is a model present, we refer to this as social observational learning. When a model is absent, it is called asocial observational learning. By observing our environment, we may come across ways to make money, strategies for success, etc. by realizing gaps in legal arguments, patterns, and schedules. To imitate is to behave in a way that resembles the behavior of a model. Sometimes children will imitate more than necessary, even if the effort is to have the children do only what was necessary. Children sometimes performed superfluous acts modeled by the experimenter, or the model. This tendency to imitate the relevant acts and irrelevant acts is called over-imitation. It is possible not only to reinforce a specific imitation in the imitation of particular acts, but also to reinforce a general tendency to imitate behavior. This is called generalized imitation. So there are variables that affect whether observational learning works and how well it works. The first is obviously the difficulty of the task being observed. The more difficult the task, the less learning is likely to occur during observation. However, observing a model perform a difficult task improves the likelihood of success. It shows the observer that it can be done. Now, another thing that matters is the skill of the model, the characteristics of the model, and the expressiveness of the model. Let's talk about skill. When observing a model perform a task, the model may be skilled or they may be unskilled at performing the task. The unskilled model may be referred to as a learning model, someone who's learning it. An observer may benefit from seeing the model struggle to learn to perform the task successfully. Characteristics of the model also matter. We learn from models who are attractive, likable, and prestigious more than models who lack these characteristics. Two groups observing the same person were told different things about the model. One group was told they were watching a classmate perform the task and did not learn as much as the second group, who was told that they were watching an experimenter's assistant. The novelty of the situation matters. The more novel the situation, an eye patch on a man, or the more expressive the model, a person that smiles a lot, the more likely learning is to occur. The expressiveness was meant to elicit a positive mood, which may also affect learning. Similarly, attractive, powerful, or popular people are more likely to be imitated. Characteristics of the observer, not the model, also matter. And species matters. Humans learn the most from observing, while apes learn the second most. Learning history is also important. Some observers have more tools to work with when learning through observation. Imagine an ape with language training. It can observe the same amount but understand more and implement more of what it learns. Age also matters. Younger learners are more likely to imitate. Note that developmental age is more important than chronological age. There are consequences of observed acts that we pay attention to. Observed acts that are reinforced by their environment are more likely to be replicated, while punished observed acts will not be replicated as often. And then there are the consequences of the observer's behavior. If we learn something while observing others, we're likely to continue observing them. If I am reinforced for imitating Mitch Hedberg, I'm likely to continue doing so. There are theories of observational learning. One is Bandura's social cognitive theory. He believes that cognitive processes account for learning from models. This theory identifies four kinds of cognitive processes: attentional, retentional, motor reproductive, and motivational. I'll get into these in just a moment.